For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber for instant analysis of USC's first practice of spring camp. There's a lot to break down. I think one of the main things was it was overall a very high-energy practice, very communicative between players and players, coaches and players, coaches and coaches, which I think communication is always a good thing and something that you want. But the other main takeaway was Clay Helton and his presence and his post-practice presser. It seemed like a very authoritative, in-control Clay that we haven't really fully seen throughout his time here.
I thought it was interesting. He said this is the last time he's going to address 2018, but he addressed it a lot in terms of what they were going to do to not end up like they did in 2018. And, his new role of, immediate fixer of mistakes and penalties, and they did have the officials there as they said they would. Occasionally, threw flags. They had guys, they do up-downs, for example. If you're a quarterback and you're throwing against air and you throw the ball and you miss a target when they're not playing defense against you, you're going to be doing up-downs. So you saw that. You saw immediate addressing of issues. You saw Clay, or we heard Clay talk about they're not going to even release a depth chart every week until Friday, he said. And they're going to hold it and see who plays that week. So, people keep pushing him. When are you going to name a quarterback? And of course, as he mentioned, then it doesn't matter that much if you name a quarterback in the spring if you're going to maybe decide every week how they play in practice. So, it's like he said, but that could change. He said he doesn't want guys, feeling comfortable, and I like that. I thought they were way too comfortable last year for no reason whatsoever. They shouldn't have even thought about being comfortable. But that wasn't just the players. That was the coaches. It starts with the coaches. I thought it was fun to watch Graham Harrell, who just seems to have a continuous dialogue, but he's not very, demonstrative in practice. And then, when they started going 7-on-7, 11-on-11, he went upstairs and had a headset on and was practicing for himself, calling plays and calling, situations. Although it was an interesting point. I asked Amon Rob said the verbiage on the play calling is much less. And I said, give me a comparison. He said, well, an average play last year would be like 7 words. This year, 3 words. So they can get that thing called and go. And they all like, that they're going faster. They all said this is faster than any time last year, that they've never played this fast. It's doesn't look like they're trying to play fast, which I think in the past sometimes they just tried to play fast to play fast. It's just this is how it works. And I would say this: this did not look like the first practice.
No.
Now, one of the advantages, because of the injuries, they're going just in helmets and shorts and jerseys. One of the good things was you could have Talanoa Hufanga and Isaiah Palomalo out there, with the first group at safety. They won't be able to, fully, have contact when they start wearing pads. But it looks pretty good when you got guys like that, in the middle of your defense. Now, it's going to be really thin when they're, watching with contact, but. The talent is there. I don't think Clay just flat out said we're better than anybody we play next year. When have we heard just flat out? And they are.
Yeah.
That's the advantage they've got. Now you got to get them to that point where they play like it.
And that's what Michael Pittman said. That's how Graham Harrell started his first meeting with the offense. He said, you're better than everyone you will play on your schedule, not because as an insult to other teams, but just as we should think that way, and we are that way. But you mentioned it.
And you're going to win every game. Yeah. You told them also the second part of that was you're going to win every game.
Yeah. And what you mentioned is that they played like they knew what they were doing. It seemed, I mentioned to you earlier, it seemed like this was the middle of the spring practice, the end of the spring practice, not the first day. And so the words we kept hearing was simpler, a sense of urgency, and accountability. And you saw that in practice. Even Clay Helton, they were running from drill to drill, but some guys were kind of lagging it. And he stopped and said, if we don't act with a sense of urgency, we're going to do this again until you do. So he made everyone go back to the other field, run back, and have a sense of urgency. So we're seeing changes like that already in the first day.
I know this will make people feel uncomfortable. We'll say things like, I think this practice was better than any single practice last spring. I think it was. I don't think there's any question. However, and I know people look at that and say, no, it can't be. Look at who you got, who's this guy and that guy. And Clay, talked about all the things that he has to do and has to get right. And the things that Clancy, for example, has to do and get right. And, the agreement that they have, that they're going to be simpler and faster and more aggressive and, control the gaps and do all the things that they didn't get done last year. So, I thought was kind of a to tell the truth time and then, just go away from it. We saw things, for example, I really liked the looks, and I know everybody was, reacting to it, but John Houston is the Mike linebacker, and Palaie now Tiote is the Will. And neither one of them were absolutely certain why they're doing it that way, but you have probably, as fast a Mike linebacker as there is in the country, and as strong a Will linebacker as there is in the country. If you can make that work, and the one way you can make that work is by flying around out there. We also saw Solomon Tuliaupupupu in his first ever practice at USC. He looked really good as the backup Mike linebacker. He just he was making plays, and they weren't even sure he was going to practice. We saw Keaton Slovis, the freshman quarterback. Thought he looked really good. I mean, all four quarterbacks got to play, but he's a nice addition. So, and we did see with all the walk-ons and the tight ends, they moved the whole group of receivers together. So they ended up with 14 receivers for 5 quarterbacks. So it wasn't as bad a mismatch. If it had just been quarterbacks and wide receivers, that would have been tough. But so I thought they did things smartly. I thought they did them well, and I was encouraged, and I think they were.
Yeah, I know it's only day one. What were your takeaways from this new offense, the air raid scheme?
I just like it that you take what they're going to give you. You're not, locked into you got to do this or you got to do that. They weren't giving them anything deep, so they took everything short. But they kept moving the ball. I think that's what what you have to do is they're trying to get people into space where there isn't anybody to defend them. I think the running backs were really excited because there are a whole lot more things that they're letting the running backs do in terms of catching the ball, more patterns, more chances to do things which will, take the pressure off the quarterback. I think that everybody was impressed with how difficult it is to get pressure on the quarterback when they're reading and reacting and throwing the ball as quickly as they were. And, I couldn't get JT Daniels to go there, but I think it was a lot nicer having that snap right where that quarterback's hands are every single time. And, JT's didn't want to say, this is a big difference this year. It sure looked like a big difference to me. That the quarterback can be surveying the defense, does not have to worry about where's the ball going.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of new changes for the DBs this spring. First off, Greg Burns, the new defensive backs coach, thought he was very vocal today. You could say he was yelling at points, very aggressive, wanted to correct mistakes immediately, and had little patience for mental errors that occurred. Also a change for the DBs. There's refs at practice now, so they got real-time evaluation of their techniques. I remember at Britton Allen, the IMG early enrollee, got flagged for holding. He wasn't sure. Greg Burns came over, grabbed the ref, and said, okay, what did he do wrong? Okay, you can't pull. It was an interesting learning session for all involved. And then the third difference for them is the depth. There's not a lot of depth at the DB position. We knew that coming in, but seeing it out there on the field, it's pretty tough for them going basically one team is all their guys.
Yeah, but it's talented depth. I mean, it's talented lack of depth. But you've got a 6'4" Isaiah Palomalo, big hitter. You got, Talanoa's almost 6'2", 215, and just a natural athlete. You've got Isaac Taylor Stewart, who's 6'2", 205, and looks like he's going to be part of the mix. Elijah Griffin will not probably make it back. Yeah. And then Chase Williams, another 6'2" kid at nickel. They will have better athletes on the field. I mean, they may not have the the experience of last year's group or whatever. This is as athletic a group. If they all get there and they all stay healthy, this will be as athletic a group as they've ever put on the field. Now, how do how do you work your way through spring when you're basically probably not going to let Isaiah Palomalo and Talanoa Hufanga have contact. They both say, I probably could, but, and then Clay said, I don't think you're going to see them, and you're not going to see Elijah. So you could have three-fifths of the secondary not really get contact this spring, but the upside of that is they're really good. So we shall see, does that give them enough time to coach them up and get them ready to play? They've got the talent, though.
Yeah. As far as roll call goes, because it was the first day of practice, we didn't really get to ask Helton the nitty-gritty questions because it's more big picture, especially with all the camera crews there. But C.J. Pollard, Velus Jones, and Daniel Amador-Bebe were not at practice, but Helton confirmed that Velus and Greg Johnson are in the portal. I talked to Michael Pittman about Velus and his situation. He said, I'm not going to speak too much on it, but I just will say that Velus is not out the door just yet. It sounds like there's a family issue going on, and Velus is figuring out what to do there. So that's TBD, I feel like, going forward. But as far as players who were injured and did not practice, Caleb Tremblay sat out. Bernard Shermer had a knee brace on. Dominique Davis was limited. And there's one more person, Elijah Griffin. Elijah Griffin did not practice. And as Dan said, he will be out for the spring.
Yeah, I thought, I think we counted up the roster that was issued at practice, and I think it was 89 players, 19 walk-ons. So, it sounds about right, 70 scholarship player. And I do think I think Clay left the door open too. I mean, he said, I'll let you know if there's a change with Greg Johnson and Velus. But he didn't slam the door. So we'll see where that goes. But I think you made another point that I think is key in what they're trying to do is the immediate correction, immediate recognition, immediate, hey, we screwed up. This is not the way to do it. And how do we screw up and how do we fix it? We didn't see that a lot last year at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it just didn't happen. So the fact that it's immediate and Clay, recognizes that as his job. He's the immediate corrector guy. And I like that. I mean, that's exactly why you practice.
Now, to play devil's advocate to both of us right now, I'm sure there's people watching at home going, hey, okay, you guys are very positive right now, but we remember the 5-7 season. What is your response to people who are saying, let's take a step back on the positivity given what we've seen previously?
Well, I mean, I think we can only judge by what we see at practice. I think we have to be, fair to do that. Yeah. Like those guys, we're not going to forget 2018. Now, they want to forget it now, going forward. They wanted to take it all the way, to today and talk about it, but then they want to put it behind them, which I think they have to do. Fans don't, we don't. People that are evaluating, how good they can be and all that, they don't have to put that behind them. I think that's probably a good thing that they know they have to prove it to people and that people aren't just going to automatically say, oh, they've turned the corner, they're going to do the right things or whatever. All we're telling you is this is what we saw today. Where this goes and how it plays out, tomorrow, the next day. I don't think, we know this is what they're trying to do. They're saying things we haven't heard them say. Yep. They're doing things we haven't seen them do in terms of the immediate correction and being more realistic. In terms of there were fewer mistakes. They were farther along. I mean, I don't think it's unfair to say this practice was better than any practice that they had last spring. So that's probably something. And there's a reason, for that. But yeah, we're not predicting anything. We're not promising anything. We're just telling you what we saw today. That's it.
Yep, that's it indeed. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up? I know there's a lot to talk about from today, but any final thoughts?
I just think this is the kind of, first practice you want. It wasn't, over the top, declarations of this or that or the other thing, just saying, hey, we got to clean this up. We got to do this right. We got to get better every day. We got to do it as a team. If one guy screws up, we're all going to, pay the penalty and all that kind of thing. I think they know they have the talent to get it done, and they know how badly they screwed up last year, every way you could screw up. And so it was kind of an upbeat realism about what's going on. I didn't think there was much realism at all last year. I didn't think they were connected to the reality of their situation. And so, as I've often said, people, want answers, and I have often said you can't get the answers right if you don't know what the questions are. Last year, it didn't look like they knew what the questions are. What was the problem? This year, it looks like they absolutely know what the questions were about last year. And now they've got to figure out how to fix them. I mean, I think they know how to do it. This was a good first step, but they need 14 more, and then a whole, summer, and we'll see where they get.
Now, scheduling for you at home, fans are able to come to practice. It's free and open to the public. Practices are Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Tuesday and Thursday start at 3:15. Saturday is on at 10 a.m. This week will be spring practice. Next week they're off for spring break, and they'll be back finishing out spring camp. But that's going to wrap it up for the first day of USC spring practice. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.